The Salvation Army in Middlesbrough hands out food, clothes and toys to the desperate. Since the start of the pandemic, the number of people turning to this line of last resort has doubled. Christmas will be hard.
It is all kinds of people that we're seeing. People who have been employed, people who have never been employed, people who are street homeless, people who've had stable housing, all sorts of people, which is a real difference for us.
COVID has turned Jeanette Basin-Wood's life upside down. After raising 4 children as a single mother, she worked hard to build a business, employing 8 staff with a £250,000 a year turnover. But then the pandemic hit and her turnover dropped by 2/3.
My business went from thriving to literally full stop within a matter of 5 days from the first lockdown. All of a sudden, that baby that I had grown had all gone, and I kind of did think about the end. I genuinely did. And I've got 4 children who I absolutely adore, who are adults, and, you know, that's what brought me back, and my dog as well.
Jeanette furloughed her staff and took a job in a factory to make ends meet.
I was on Indeed putting out my CV, and I was having to almost dumb down my actual qualifications, you know, because people don't want somebody who's run their own business because they're probably going to be like super bossy. They just want somebody to come to work. I couldn't even get like delivery driver jobs. I'm not a person that can just sit and kind of cry and hug my pillow. So I thought, right, let's do something. And the factory was the only company that was hiring. Like, I just feel like I'm kind of swimming, grabbing onto life rafts, letting go, going for another life raft. And it's kind of like, could somebody just come and get me back to my beautiful life, please?
Areas of the northeast, like Middlesbrough, are experiencing job losses that haven't been seen since 1994. Across the UK, more than 800,000 people have lost their jobs since the start of the pandemic. But with many still furloughed and 2/3 of us subject to the strictest restrictions, economists fear that number will rise further.
There's clearly a risk next year, once things start to get back to normal, that we'll see that some of those millions who have been furloughed don't actually have a job to go back to. We know that possibly as many as 2 million have been furloughed the whole time since March. Now, how many of those will be going back to work next spring or whenever things start to get back to normal? We don't know. And there's clearly going to be lots of disruption in the economy.
I mean, I know it's hard to say because, you know, on the one hand, the furlough scheme is really supporting a lot of people who could be in a very difficult situation otherwise, but it's expensive and it's not very targeted.
I think the problem with the announcement of the continuation of the furlough scheme is it really going to end at the end of April? I mean, by the end of April, it will have been going for more than a year. Now that we actually have a vaccine on the horizon, hopefully we do have an end in sight. When we've got an end in sight, then probably continuing to throw lots of support at the economy is the right call. But it does have to sort of end at some point, and I suppose the concern is if the vaccine isn't rolled out, it's less effective, there are 3rd and 4th waves. Quite how long we're going to be able to keep this up, I really don't know.
It's almost as if like the fast forward button's been pressed with the economy on certain changes that were happening anyway, with the high street, with outsourcing. Do you think that's a good way of looking at it?
Usually when sort of big changes happen, big crises occur, what they do is make things happen quicker than they otherwise would have done, rather than change the direction altogether. And I think probably that's what's happening here. There was a bit of a move to working at home. There was clearly a move from high street to online retail. There may be other changes which go a bit in a different direction. We were still flying more and more. It may be that firms discover that, well, if people can do this stuff from home, why do they have to be in the UK at all? So there may be a change actually in the location of some of those jobs. I think there is some hope in all of this. I mean, whilst lots of people have struggled through this crisis, lots of saved loads of money because there's been nothing to spend on. So there's potentially a big wall of cash coming at some businesses and some parts of the economy through next year as people breathe a sigh of relief and spend some of that pent-up savings. So it might not all be bad, but for some groups and for some sectors of the economy, they are going to need support for possibly some period.
COVID-19 has transformed how we work, shop and socialise. As with all economic shifts, particularly ones that are happening at breakneck speed, change could bring opportunity but many jobs and livelihoods will be devastated in the process.